We are going to make a vanilla cake, or I'm going to do cupcakes today, but you can use this for cake as well. I always used to buy cake mix boxes because I could never find a good vanilla cupcake or cake recipe. Finally, I've spent the last couple months trying different recipes. Some are too oily, some are too dry or too sweet. I finally found the perfect one. You're going to have to give this one a try. So what we're going to do is we're going to keep, first off, you want to make sure you have your milk, your eggs, and your butter all at room temperature. That's one of the key things for this. Everything incorporates much nicer in the mix in your dough when that's all at room temperature. So I have 1.5 cups of flour. I'm just going to get all my dry ingredients into my mixer first a minute. 1 cup of sugar. And I have 1/8 of a teaspoon of salt, 1/8 of baking soda, and 1.5 of baking powder. So those are our dry ingredients. And as our mixer mixes, I am going to slowly add my butter, which I've just put into little chunks. So this is at room temperature. We just want to let the mixer incorporate those so it becomes a little bit of a crumbly kind of a mixture. The butter gets broken down in the flour a little bit there. Put that on a little bit higher. I'm just using my paddle. You can use a whipper beater if you prefer, but this one also just works fine. Sometimes with the whipper beater, all your butter gets stuck in all the tines of the whipper, so this is a bit nicer. Alright, so our dough is getting a little bit crumbly because the butter is slowly breaking up, so we can add in our wet ingredients. I'm just going to let that keep mixing. So I have 2 eggs. And I have 1.5 teaspoons of vanilla extract. I have 1/4 cup of oil. You need that oil. The oil helps keep the cupcakes moist. I found that by day 4, my cupcake was still moist. I know, how did a cupcake stick around for 4 days? It did, but anyways. And 2/3 of a cup of milk. So you can come take a look at the batter. I'm just going to get this all mixing up. And you're going to want to put this probably on high or so. We're going to let it mix for 2 to 3 minutes because we want this to get nice and smooth. So I'm going to stop the video, but I'll show you what this looks like after about 2 to 3 minutes. Alright, this has been about 3 minutes. Halfway through I scraped the bottom of my bowl to make sure I was getting everything from the bottom. See how nice and smooth that dough is? Batter. Very nice and smooth. Perfect. So we're going to get this into our muffin tins. And I've lined my muffin tins just with the paper cups. Usually when you have cupcakes, it's just so much easier. They come out nice. And this cupcake recipe, actually the liners peel off very nice. I just buy the liners at the dollar store. It doesn't matter where you get them from. So we're going to get these into our cups. And you don't want to fill them all the way to the top. Last time I ended up making 12, and they were a good sized cupcake. If you wanted to make a few more, you just don't fill them up quite as much. So I had them about 2/3 full. This is my 2 1/4 inch scoop, and that puts them about 2/3 full, maybe even a little bit more. So you just don't want to fill them too much because they will rise. So if you do like smaller cupcakes, go ahead, only fill them just over halfway. So I'm going to get these all ready and we're going to put them in the oven, 350 degrees. And they'll probably take 22-ish minutes, between 20 and 25. Every oven is different. Sometimes you don't realize if your oven runs hot or not. My oven runs cool, so I always have to make my oven temperature higher. And I have a thermometer in my oven to make sure my oven is at the 350 degrees. So we're going to get these in the oven. I'll show you what they look at like about 20 minutes, and I'll show you that where they are just not quite done. You do want to make sure cupcakes are baked all the way through, otherwise they'll have batter in the middle that's not cooked. All right, we're around the 20-minute mark. They're not very golden yet, and if you touch the top, it stays indented a little bit. You want it to spring back and also be golden. So mine needs a couple more minutes, but I also see on my thermometer, my oven is not quite at 350. So you might only need 20 minutes. Make sure you check it. All right, so I've pulled my cupcakes out. So when you touch them, they spring back. They don't leave the indentation, and you can always double check with the toothpick that your toothpick comes out clean. If there's any cake batter on there, you need a little bit longer. So every oven is different. It can be anywhere from 18, 23 minutes. My oven is cool, so it took 23 minutes. Your oven, if it runs a little hotter, check it even at 18-minute mark, just to make sure. They're not very big, so cupcakes actually cook quite quickly. So you don't want to overcook them, so make sure you keep an eye on that. So I'm going to let these cool. You can just leave them in the racks to cool if you like, or put it on an actual cooling rack. And we're going to mix up some buttercream icing. I think I'm going to do a Mocha buttercream icing today. So I think I'll attach that to the video. We'll quickly whip that up once these have cooled off, and we'll decorate them pretty so that they look really delicious. All right, we're going to just make some icing for our cupcakes. And if you're wanting to use a larger flour tip for your cupcakes, it takes quite a bit of icing to put onto your cupcakes. So the amounts I'm going to give you will work for your dozen, 12 to 14 cupcakes. So I have my butter at room temperature. I have 3/4 of a cup, and when you break it up into chunks, it just comes to room temperature just a little bit quicker, and it just is a bit softer. So we've got ourselves 3/4 of a cup of butter. We're going to just start whipping that just for a minute to make sure it's nice and soft. And we're going to put in 3 cups of icing sugar, and we're going to make Mocha. So I have also a 1/4 cup of cocoa powder. That's just your unsweetened cocoa powder. 3 cups of your icing sugar. Just get this one started slowly. I also have a teaspoon of vanilla extract. And I have some coffee. So for my coffee, I just have 1 tablespoon of just instant coffee. I only use this for baking. And if you put about 1 to 2 teaspoons of hot water just to dissolve it, because you don't want to put the instant coffee straight in, because then it'll stay as little granules and your buttercream will have granules of coffee. You do want that in liquid form. So we are going to start mixing this, and then we're going to have to add a little bit of milk to get the texture that we want. So I'm just going to get this to start beating first. I'm going to mix that for a couple minutes. I'm going to have to scrape the side of my bowl, I can already see, because my butter is sticking to the sides. And then I'm going to get out my milk, and we're just going to put a little bit of milk in to make sure you get that nice creamy buttercream. All right, so I have a 1/4 cup of milk here that I'm just going to slowly add to this so that until we get the texture we like. I may not need it all. You just want to get to the point, if you want a nice spreadable texture, I think we might even use it all. We're going to use our full 1/4, and then we're going to get this whipping. And I'm going to let this beat for probably 2 or 3 minutes. Alright, I've scraped the bottom of my bowl a couple of times in between, so this has been whipping for, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 minutes. You just want this to be nice and light and creamy so that it's just such a nice creamy texture on top of the cupcakes. So we've got ourselves a nice Mocha buttercream. So you've got your cocoa powder in there for the chocolate. This has got quite a bit of coffee. If you're not crazy on too much coffee, you can always back that coffee off to like 1/2 tablespoon. That's fine too, whatever you like. You can omit the coffee altogether and just do chocolate. No problem. And we also have some chocolate sprinkles that we're going to, of course, put on top. Just good old chocolate hail. This is the fun one. This has got the white chocolate and the dark chocolate. So I'm going to get this into my piping bag, pipe them up. I'll just show you, I'll make sure there's a picture at the on my saved screen there for you to see what they look like when they're done. I have my vanilla cake recipe. If you want to actually make cake rather than cupcakes, just double the recipe. And I think one time the recipe would be about a 9-inch round. So if you're wanting to make your layered cake, you probably have to double it. It might be a little bit much, but you can double that up. Or if you want to make a slab cake where you put it in your cookie sheet, like your jelly roll pan, then you only probably need to bake it maybe 20 minutes for the sheet cake. The round cake pans, you probably have to bake for 35-ish minutes. You just want to make sure that cake is done. But you can easily play with the amounts, double or triple the recipe to make larger cakes and stuff. But this is the amount that's perfect for 12 to 14 cupcakes. So give them a try. So here's the vanilla cake and the basic buttercream icing. If your buttercream is nice and soft, just go nice and slow around. Makes a pretty little flower on top. And just add a few chocolate sprinkles. So this amount will easily be plenty for my 14 cupcakes.